So today is my last day to complete my dissertation. It's due tomorrow at midnight, but tomorrow at midnight as well, I also have a presentation due for this dissertation. So my plan is to spend tomorrow dedicated to that presentation, and today I want to be able to finish this. So I got to uni at around 11:30. I went into Ground Cafe. I wanted to work in there today. I got a coffee. Now, when I first started this dissertation, I kind of vaguely understood it, but I didn't want to focus too much on understanding it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made as much progress. So the first part of me writing this dissertation was trying to write things down. So at this point I have a beginning, middle and end, which I kind of call my first draft, but it's got lots of holes in it. And one of those holes was on Hawking radiation. There was a lot of equations, but it just wasn't put together nicely. One of the things I wanted to do was have an introduction, have a motivation for Hawking radiation. What I wanted to do was introduce it and say why this is needed, coming off the back of black holes and black hole solutions. Why was it needed to think that a black hole can emit temperature? And to help me, I was actually using Stephen Hawking's book that has some topics related to Hawking radiation. Now, interesting story, that Stephen Hawking book was probably one of the first books I ever actually bought. That was when I was into physics and I wanted to start reading and I didn't really know what, and it was in Costco I actually bought that book from. So it was nice to kind of look into a book that I haven't read in so long. Anyway, the motivation that the book states was that when you look at a black hole, you can interpret the black hole's surface area to entropy because of the simple fact that both of those quantities, they never seem to decrease. So if you can interpret somehow the surface area of the black hole as entropy, then there is an entropy associated to a black hole. If there is an entropy associated to a black hole, then there must also be a temperature associated with a black hole, because thermodynamics links entropy and temperature. That was why they decided to investigate the idea of a black hole emitting something.
Hi, I'm Sharma. I was in Jericho 6th form.
You have to speak louder.
Hi, I'm Sharma. I was in Jericho 6th form and I do chemistry.
Thank you. So I had a little bit of a break, got outside and went back into Ground Cafe for round 2. I was procrastinating whether or not to get another coffee, but I thought, you know what, Jericho, if there's one day we're going to need a second coffee, it's going to be today. There was also other things I was doing. I was also trying to map the relationship between the wave function of a particle and the Boltzmann probability, I believe it's called, the Boltzmann distribution. So one is a thermodynamic law and one is a quantum mechanical law. So Hawking radiation is all about linking thermodynamics to kind of quantum mechanics, and it's trying to link the two. So basically there are two equations and I found out explicitly how to link one to the other, so I felt really happy about that. There's also this thing called Wick notation. I talked about it before, which is turning time into complex time, and it sounds so weird, but basically the reason is, I discovered today, was that when you turn time into complex time, a black hole, you can model it as something in a thermal equilibrium, or you can model it as a thermal system. So that's the reason why we changed into complex time. So 3 things: the motivation for Hawking radiation, the entropy stuff, the mapping between the wave function and the Boltzmann distribution, and number 3, understanding why we use Wick rotation, which is complex time. So all of those things were kind of in there, but it was just kind of there. There was no reason. They just came out of the blue and I didn't like it. So I was working on patching that up, and I was doing that by, using my own understanding and using an example report and our notes our professor gave us. So really trying to integrate everything. Anyway, after that, I went to the gym to do my Thursday workout, which is just an arm workout, simple workout. I have not been very good with the gym recently, so I'm trying to get back to it. I think I've just been tired. I've been tired, and obviously I've been away, I've been traveling, and I've been a bit exhausted. But slowly I'm trying to get back to the gyms. After the gym, I went to Canal-side to have some lunch. Guys, Canal-side today was so beautiful. The weather was so nice. It was like humidity. When you go to a hot country and you feel that humidity and it kind of hugs you and it reminds you of when you was on holiday. That's what it felt like. So it was really awesome. The camera does not do it justice, and yeah, just super peaceful.
Oh my God, bro.
Oh, hell no, man.
So after a bit of walking around, I got a tea from Ground Cafe and I went back to Canalside to go into the study area. There's like a small study area by Canalside. I know there's a few of my guys from my course who are always in there, so I was like, okay, cool, I'll go study in here.
So we have to do our 15-minute presentation on our dissertation, and mine is on superthermal particles and the IMF around the sun. And yeah, I'm with Jericho. We're doing our physics degree.
Information, remove information, and rephrase some stuff. And it's quite hefty. It's a lot of stuff.
Now, during this hour, it's about 5 o'clock now, I was working on my conclusion. My conclusion has some holes in it as well. The second part of my conclusion is about what are the next steps. You suggest a study to take this research further. And what I wanted to talk about was the information paradox. And I was actually using the Stephen Hawking book. So there's a section in there called What is Inside a Black Hole? And towards the end, basically, he talks about with Hawking radiation, there's this issue called the information paradox. And that was what I was citing in my dissertation. It was cool, right? Because I was like citing, this is like citing the source. And I had an actual book, which is so much cooler than a website or whatever. Either way, so just in brief, the information paradox states that if a black hole emits radiation, from first glances, there is no relationship between what falls into a black hole and what a black hole emits. And to cut a long story short, this basically breaks down one of the rules of physics. It means that there's no relationship between one or the other. There's no predictability because one of the laws of nature breaks down. And one of the ways scientists are looking to retain this information is by looking at what is called a super translational charges. The book states that if you look at space-time, you look at the masses and it curves space-time, so it's not symmetrical. But if you zoom out, space-time appears flat, and then if you rotate, that space-time remains symmetrical. So space-time is full of these quantities called super translational charges, and they say that in those, that is where the information is conserved because the symmetries are conserved, and that's where some of the missing information comes from. So that's what I was talking about in my conclusion. After that, I went on another walk. This was 3 solid hours of pure studying and revision, so I was pretty knackered at this point. And I was walking, and a 10-minute walk turned into something a bit longer.
Yeah, I'm good. I've missed him in the gym for like months now.
Yeah, I've been getting back to it this week, but I wasn't coming for a little bit, so
Yeah.
you know. What's up, guys? Just at Canalside right now, just going on a walk to kind of break up my study sessions. Probably gonna go into the library now. Gonna do 1 hour. Gonna try and add a section for geodesics and there's a few equations that I've written for Hawking radiation. I basically need to explain what those equations are, and then that should be everything done apart from spelling and referencing, which I'm hoping to do tomorrow. I'm a bit tired, but it's also a beautiful day. The warm air hugs you. That's what it feels like. The humidity hugs you, and it's just super nice being here. So yeah, I'm just kind of like walking it off, and I'm gonna switch up and go into the library, and hopefully we'll see if we can do it. But we always do, so you know. So yeah, just trying to walk around, trying to like encourage myself into doing 1 more hours of study session. I made my way into the first floor of the library. I thought I haven't been there in a while. Why not go back there? Yeah, probably wasn't the nicest place to study at this point, but you know, I'm here now. So number 1, I had forgotten a small section on geodesics, which are the equations that describe the shortest path in curved space. So I had to write a small section on that on my dissertation in this last hour. And as I said before, when I first started writing this dissertation, I was just focusing on writing down the hard stuff. So a lot of that was the long derivations for the Hawking temperature of different black holes. But what I needed to do now is actually say what those equations mean, because they're just equations on a paper. You know, you need like a sentence or two explaining like, okay, this shows that the temperature is inversely proportional to the mass. I done that, and my promise to myself was that I was going to go green pepper after that. That would be my little treat, my little reward for doing 4 hours and a gym session, all of work. So that was a pretty tough day. So I ended it in green pepper.
This is where the fun begins.
So there's this guy I know from the gym, and sometimes he comes up to me, he says, hello, how are you doing, etc. One thing I've noticed about him is that he only does it when it's convenient. There have been a few times where, like, I've been in the gym, he's seen me, but because he's like a bit far away and he would have to make a bit of effort to kind of like come and say hello to me, when that is the case, he doesn't really do anything. So I was coming into the gym today and I saw him, and just based on what I've been saying on the last couple of videos, I was like, okay, he's not really making an effort to come see me. He only kind of like says something when he has to. So okay, unless I have to say something, I'm not going to say anything to him. And previously what I would have done was I would have tried and rationalized it and said that, like, okay, no, he's nice sometimes, like, you know, like when he sees you, he says hello, but part of my understanding now is that that's just the bare minimum. That's just basic manners, and just because someone affords you those basic manners, they don't deserve the title of friend from you.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
You know, they're just someone that you know. They can just be someone that you need to know. Not everyone who shows that bare minimum of niceness, you have to afford so much luxury of your time and your energy to them. And that's also one of the things I'm doing, is I'm trying to like conserve that energy, not trying to give it to every single person. So anyways, he comes to me, he says hi, and then like, okay, so I'm just like, okay, hi bro, like I'm not really putting much energy into it. And then he comes back to me, which is cool. Okay, so he's come back to me. Okay, if he speaks to me, I'm going to speak to him. Anyway, we're talking. And one good thing about me is that when I stop people pleasing, my conversations change. A lot of the time when I'm having a conversation with him, I'm now able to delegate a lot of the work to him. You know, understanding that a conversation is a two-way thing, and it's not something that you have to do to try and retain their attention. But it means that my conversation with him was just a lot better. You know, I can step back and analyze and not just say things impulsively and just kind of like analyze. So the conversation was running smoothly, and I asked him what he plans on doing after uni, and I could tell that he kind of like lit up at this question, right? So, and you could tell the enthusiasm. So he wanted to tell me about it, and I listened, and then he returned the favor and he asked me what I wanted to do outside uni, and I told him. And the thing I wanted to mention was the conversation got to my YouTube channel. He basically told me what a lot of people have told me, which is that I should start reels, and that I should start doing reels and I should start doing TikToks because I will grow a lot faster on them. I know it sounds silly, but for me to actually kind of like disagree straight to his face for an argument that he so fervently put into me, it would have been very hard. But I held my ground and I was like, no bro, I don't want to do reels. And I explained to him some of the reasons why I don't want to do reels. One of the reasons being that I feel like with reels, sometimes you are just saying something for the sake of saying something. For content, you need to be consistent and you need to make a lot of it, and that sometimes will encourage you and inspire you to say things just for the sake of saying things. And when you do that, your tendency to hurt or offend someone increases. Secondly, with reels, when you're watching reels, when someone comes across it, they're not ready for it. You know, their scrolling is unintentional. Whilst if they come to like my YouTube videos, even if I say something wrong, it's different because they're prepared for it. They've clicked on my video. They're prepared in a way that they aren't for reels. So your proclivity to hurt or offend someone isn't as high. I also don't like contributing to like this big giant algorithm that there may be some benefit to it, but a lot of it just wastes a lot of people's time. That's how I felt. And I was happy because I was able to explain to him that argument. And he pushed back a little bit, and I did buckle a tiny bit, but a lot less than what I usually did. But I did stay my ground, and I did stay with my point, and I backed up my point, and I understood that a disagreement between me and him is not a reconciliation which I need to solve. That this disagreement, it isn't going to break this potential friendship with this guy who isn't even my friend. So because I understand that he's not my friend, like it changes things. It changes things, and I was able to stick to my argument, to my point of view. And he, you know, he still pushed back. He has his own ideas. And then it got to a point where he was like, are you trying to be ethical or are you trying to make money? And I said to him, and this is interesting, I said to him, why can't it be both? And that was really positive for me because it meant that I'm not accepting the ultimatum that someone gives out, you know, because if you accept ultimatums that people give out, it allows you to be manipulated. Not saying that this guy was trying to manipulate me, but like when someone gives you, okay, this option or that option, and you're trying to argue between the two, but no, I changed the thing, and I was like, no bro, like why can't it be both? Like, why can't it be both? Why does one have to sacrifice the other? And the conversation ended. He said, all right, man, I respect that, whatever. He left. I came away from that conversation feeling the same kind of way I felt with Aryan when I said that, you know, like when I'm with Aryan, like he kind of gets me, I kind of feel seen. And I felt like in that situation, even with this guy who I don't consider a friend, I felt this energy, this kind of like positive energy that made me feel seen. Maybe the reason why you feel lonely is because when love is shown to you, it's not shown to your authentic self. And I think that's one of the problems I've had, and I'm looking forward to this because I think that it means that just in that situation, I was able to communicate who I am. You know, because that idea of, you know, not wanting to do reels, not wanting to do something just because everyone says they're doing it, and the idea of like not wanting to hurt people, that idea is totally me. I'm not saying that to be virtuous or anything, but it's just me. It's just who I am. And normally what I would have done is I would have said, yeah, you know, you're probably right. Like, I'll take your advice. Like, I still would have not done it, but I wouldn't have communicated it. I think that's one of the problems I had. Just thought, what if going forward I'm able to communicate who I am and what I want a little bit better than I was before, you know? And I just felt that if I could do that, that would be awesome. You know, because sometimes I do feel a little bit lonely. I do feel a little bit distant. You know, previously in the past, even when I was with people, I would still feel a little bit lonely. And I think this is the reason. And now that I think about, you know, some of the groups, some of the people that I've kind of like taken a step back from, you know, I've really thought about it. And I've said, you know, sometimes I don't like what they say, and I don't like how they say it, and I don't like the mannerism in which they say it, and I don't like who I have to be in those conversations. And you know, they say things, and I'm not saying they're bad people. They have so much neglect for how those words will be heard, or how, you know, will make other people feel. And they have so much neglect over, you know, like when they say things, is there a benefit? Is there a point in saying things? You know, when they consider people, they only consider one dimension to that person. They don't consider the many dimensions to me. I feel like that part of me has been a little bit locked up, and I feel like going forward, hopefully I'm able to communicate that and share that with the world a little bit. And I'm hoping that that can be a net positive for me in terms of how I feel in the friends I make, how I feel when I'm with those friends, you know, not obsessing over women because, you know, this idea of like, you know, you feel seen. So when you actually see her, you fumble and you make a mistake, you know, because like she's not a person anymore. She's like an idea, you know. If I can communicate who I really am, then I think that could just be a positive. So I just wanted to share that. So.